get on my Zoom, y'all. Like, I had to come get on my Zoom. So I feel like I've made a few TikToks about this, but in order to like actually seem helpful instead of shady, I felt like a longer video was needed because in this economy, like somebody has to come be the real talk girly. Like we cannot keep pretending you're going to go from like no design background to being like a UX UI designer in a month or two. Like where I'm from, we call that cap. So I'm going to tell you like the top reasons why your boot camp or course might not be enough to be job ready. Probably isn't. But I'll also tell you ways that you can combat those issues. So we're going to be identifying problems, coming up with some solutions. Like it's giving product designer. Like wow, it just jumps out sometimes. Now, before I get started, I like to preface this by saying if you are the exception to anything I'm about to say, then congratulations. I need you to sit this one out and let me talk to the people who are struggling, okay? Okay. So one of the things that I see people really struggling with coming out of courses or boot camps is the fact that you're really only learning base knowledge. And I know it feels like you're dedicating, a couple hours to this every day. That should add up over the weeks and months. But at the end of the day, a lot of these curriculums are really just teaching you those like core and foundational things that you need to get started. And you kind of come out just knowing if you kind of like UX UI, but you definitely don't usually come out knowing enough to feel like you are fully equipped to be a UX UI or a product designer. And so that can be like really discouraging. I've seen these curriculums, people send me courses and stuff to kind of like try to look over a little bit, see their syllabus, see if it should be worth taking and things like that. And just looking at the courses and the curriculums and the time frames in which you're learning these things, I can see that they're just going over and covering the foundational basis, and they're not really going deep into things because they're not like making that extra time. It would turn the course into probably years if they really thoroughly covered all of the things you need to know. And then if they did that in that time frame, the game would probably change. So the first thing you're going to want to do to combat any of this is to find your why. That's going to be my advice before the advice, because I might not always be motivated, but rent be due every month on the 1st. So I'll be real dedicated. So find your why, whether it's you absolutely love this and you love the field, whether it's because it's a skill that you can gain to, assure financial stability, which sometimes leads to more mental stability. That's one of my favorite parts of it. Whatever your why is, you really need to find that, internalize it, and stick to it, because you're not going to be motivated to learn this stuff and go the extra mile every day, but you need to be dedicated to it, especially in this market. So first, find your why. The second part of that advice is to kind of take your own time and dig deeper into the curriculum, because I'm telling you, 85% of the courses or boot camps, until you get to like some of the uber expensive ones, are not going in deep. So you're going to have to go in deep on your own. So let me give you a little hint and show you a little bit more. So I wanted to quickly give you guys an example of what I mean by diving in deeper and doing a little bit extra. So this is one of Springboard's free UX curriculums. They have a boot camp as well, but this is just like a free syllabus and curriculum they have. So for example, say I was in this stage where I was in wireframing and sketching, and I was going through these little modules, and these things are just like a couple of minutes each, right? So probably not enough to fully grasp these concepts, right? So say I was learning about the crazy eights design sprints, right? Which is a method that a lot of people use. And this is only 2 to 3 minutes. Now, I might get a quick overview, but if I just watch those 2 to 3 minutes and mark complete, I'm not really grasping that, right? So what I would do is I would come over here to YouTube and I would type in crazy eights UX, right? And then I would come in here and I would pick a few videos that are a little bit longer and really just dive into this some more, right? So watch a couple videos. Each of these are still pretty short, but you can literally dive into these videos. And like pro tip, a lot of these programs have their videos on YouTube. So if you're not taking the full course, you can still catch some of their lessons and things like this on YouTube. So that's something I would do for literally so many parts of this. I would literally like dive in and anything that I see where I know that I need to learn more, I would dive into that, right? Because 8 to 11 minutes is not enough. Like these couple of minutes to learn all about wireframes. Are you kidding me? In less than 30 minutes, you're going to learn one of the most important parts of UX. Like, be for real. I need everybody to be for real. And I need you to not just take those couple minutes, mark it's complete, and tell me, like, Lindsay, I should be job ready. I don't know what's happening. Come on, guys. So the next thing I see is really, really limited exposure to the tools that you are going to need to learn to be a UX designer. Most people just kind of introduce you to a few of the things that you may need. So they might tell you about Figma and show you a few basics in there. They might tell you about some like whiteboarding tools and show you a few basics in there during like the research phases, but they're not really going super in depth and telling you the things that you're really going to need to know to really learn and be able to use these tools properly on a daily basis without being stuck, without your learning time taking up time for the project. So one of the most popular recommendations you'll probably get for practicing your design skills is daily UI. Highly recommend. This is something that even I use or like try to re-sign up for to make it a daily practice to get better in Figma. And I might add like little advanced things to the task on my own now. But it starts off as like an email series. So every day it will email you something random to design, and it could be something like a credit card screen that checks out, on an app, or it could be like design a calculator and things like that. One of the biggest mistakes I made in the beginning was trying to take shortcuts when doing these daily practices. So I would literally like get on Figma, and if it was like to do a calculator, instead of actually designing like a calculator screen from scratch like I should have been doing, I would literally try to go find like some existing like calculator UI, bring it into Figma, and then kind of alter it for myself to how I like it. And it's just like, that's really cheating yourself because it's limiting your skills. It's showing you how to do the quick microwave way, which you might need to, do in some instances. I'm not gonna lie, I use UI kits and stuff like that all the time once you get into it heavy. But when you're learning and you really actually need to learn, I don't really recommend that. I was cheating myself. I probably could have got better even faster if I wouldn't have played myself like that. One of my other cheat codes when I'm doing this is I will do it myself, and then I might look all of the daily UI challenges. A lot of people upload them to sites like Dribble, and there you can see other people's designs. And comparison is the thief of joy, but when you're trying to learn how not to suck, sometimes you might need to look at things that are better. Decide like a visual style you really kind of mesh with, merge with. Maybe you're looking at like a fintech calculator or a fintech crypto style apps, and you look those up and you kind of see how you can evolve your designs to match those things, because that's what you like. At the end of the day, you look at yours and be like, oh, mine doesn't look like that. Mom, mine doesn't look like hers. But then that is what makes you better. So like, don't beat yourself up about it. Know you will get better, but like, don't lie to yourself either. Like, don't play yourself. Like, practice definitely makes better. It will never make perfect because this game is continuously evolving and changing, and design at the end of the day, all art and design is subjective, but you could do things to make yourself a lot objectively better. Know what I'm saying? So one of the next issues is going to be that they're really not teaching you the soft communication skills. You hear about that in like corporate job world, whatever. They're not teaching you those skills, and you're really going to need to lean on those as a designer, because one of the most important things that you have to do on a either daily or weekly basis is communicate your design thinking and communicate that to different cross-functional team members, and you have to speak to each of them in a language that they can understand to make them understand your design thinking, your design process. So the way I talk to a developer is different than the way I talk to the CEO of a startup. The way I talk to my project manager is different than the way I talk to a different designer. And I could be presenting the same design and the same concepts to all of those people, but I'm going to speak to them differently, and I'm going to have a different way of communicating and getting across in a way that best gets it across to that person based on just kind of like how they vibe, how their role is, what design does, and how it kind of functions with their roles. And that's something that you're really not learning in boot camps, where you don't have to do a live portfolio review. You don't have to explain your case studies live or even on video. You don't have to talk to people to get this design thinking across. And it really takes a toll on what you're able to do, even just in the interview process, because in the interview process, they're going to ask you about your case studies, about, 2 or 3 projects in your portfolio, about what your thinking was when you were doing these.
No, I had a reason. I had a reason.
What was the reason?
I had a reason.
What was the
I had a
reason?
reason.
What was the reason?
It's about how you came to each solution. And you're going to really you can't sit there and read your portfolio or read your points. You're going to have to really just talk to them and communicate in a way that they can understand. And they might throw you a curveball and ask about it in a way you haven't heard it asked about. And you still have to learn how to talk to that person to make them understand your design thinking. And so when you're like asynchronously submitting your thoughts, or you're submitting your research, or you're submitting your project portfolio for it to be reviewed at some time, and you're not talking to anybody, it's kind of doing you a disservice when these boot camps and courses are set up like that. So you're not learning those skills. And so one thing you can really do to combat that is, once you have a portfolio built up, or even when you're just working on different sections of your projects in your courses or boot camp, what I really suggest you do is sign up for Loom, or get QuickTime on your computer, or anything that records you and records a video of you, and talk out your project. Record yourself talking out your project, talking out your process, explaining your design process, explaining your design thinking, and play it back. Just like I do with these YouTube videos, sometimes it's a hot mess, and I have to decide like whether I better myself and redo it and do it until I get it, or if I'm just going to be lazy and say whatever. And that's not something you want to do when you're learning how to talk about and communicate your design. You want to get it right, especially those projects specifically that you're going to be talking about during the interview process. Those are definitely the ones you want to get right. So even me at my big design age, if I am going up for a new contract, usually I'm doing contracts these days. If I'm going up for a new contract, sometimes in the process, I still have to explain things in my portfolio. And I'm usually trying to, if I feel like it, add new projects. So then those are new projects that I have to talk about and overview and learn how to speak on. So I still do that same thing in practice until I get it right. I know a little bit more how it goes now and the questions people ask, but still, like, I have to be comfortable talking about it and really becoming clear with my thoughts, and that soft communication, those soft skills, that communication really stands out. So that's something that you can practice on your own time to make it better if you're going through a program that's like async and you're not getting that back and forth. Even sometimes the peer-to-peer stuff, you're not really going your hardest or doing your best. You're just kind of like talking to each other, but you really need to like perfect these things. So recording yourself is definitely what I suggest. And the one thing that's last, but certainly not the least, is that your portfolio isn't great. And it's not going to be. You're just starting out. It's not going to be the greatest your portfolio will ever be. It will continue to evolve and continue to get better. But I feel like it's a lie when, these boot camps or these courses, even the pricier boot camps, when they set you up and you come out with like 1 or 2 mock projects, and those projects have like a ton of research, a ton of that process, right? All these sticky notes, all these, processes where you're learning those things, and they have you wireframing things, and then you end up with like to actually design screens or something ridiculous. I've gone through it. I've done it. If I haven't told you guys, I took a boot camp in like, or a course in like 2020 after I was well into it, but I just kind of wanted to see what everybody else was going through, what people were taking, what they were coming out with. And I think I came out with like 3 screens that I had to have for the course, and I think I did 3 extra ones on my own. And that was pretty much it. So you're not coming out of this with like strong enough case studies. You're coming out with like bare minimum case studies. In some courses, you come out with literally 1 mock project. Even the really good boot camps, some of them might come out with kind of like 1 more real world project if they can connect you to those. But a lot of those, I haven't really seen a lot of those in practice. I've, heard people say that they have those some of the times, but then I see them in the real world project is like a Twitter redesign or a LinkedIn redesign, which is something as a newbie in your portfolio, they're going to know like you didn't actually do that. You never worked at Twitter. You never worked at LinkedIn. So I really hate obvious mock projects. I rather the projects be a mock of like some startup or some like idea that's not so obvious that it wasn't something you've actually worked on yet. How do you combat like not having the best case studies or the strongest case studies? Well, one thing you can do is like once you get through the program and you've taken the time and you've learned these things, you can then go back and expand on what you came out with. So if you came out with some onboarding screens for your app, why don't you take the time to design 2 or 3 more features? Why don't you take the time to research what it would take to make those 2 or 3 more features? Or maybe you didn't really get to dive into like the branding and a lot of the UI. So why don't you take the time to improve that for the screens you already did and then expand on those some more? Really, expansion is really just going to be the key, because when these programs are so short and concise, you don't have the time during to expand, but you might have the time shortly after to expand. It's best to do it while it's still like fresh on your brain. So expansion is really the key. And like all of these steps you'll see, I'm just telling you to go do more, do more, do more, because they're doing the least.
That's why I always do the most.
Like Cardi said. So yeah, that's really my tip for that, is just to expand, expand, expand. One other thing is like there are people learning development. So if you really want to take it up a notch, instead of just having screens, you could probably hop on Twitter, look up hashtag like 100 devs, like all these people who are learning development, and you can partner up with them on projects, and they might be able to do a little bit of front end code and make some stuff move, make some motion outside of some Figma prototypes. Like really lean into different communities, lean into, if you have a cohort of people you're learning it with, lean into that. Or just like search hashtags, search the daily UI hashtags on Twitter and Instagram. Those are probably people who are learning with you. Like lean into that. You're gonna have to lean into community, and you're gonna have to like lean on each other to make each other better, because it could get lonely out here, and it's not fun when it's lonely. So you need that practice, and you might not be able to off jump find like those freelance projects. I know those things are becoming way more few and far and in between, and I don't like pushing people out there to like take super low budget $50 Upwork app projects, and then they like have like the worst experience dealing with like the worst cheap people. So you might have to just get creative. That's why I'm really more of a fan of mock projects than dealing with like horrible people that are going to be like discouraging and like stress you out and make it like a horrible partnership or work environment. But you have to find what works best for you. Maybe you can come up on some opportunities, people who have like small businesses. You might not get to redesign an app or the things that you really dream of yet, but you can start with, just like I did, started with websites. So you can start to help your friends who have like a little business, help them build their website, do some UX, do some design thinking behind it, really help push that forward and be able to use those live sites in your portfolio as a part of projects. Ultimately, I just wanted to hop on here really quickly and just have like that real talk time with you guys, because I'm seeing a lot of tech influencers just speaking really generally, or lying and say, oh, you can take this one boot camp or you can get this cert. Spoiler alert, certs don't really exist in UX UI design. They're certifications. They're not technical certs. They're telling you to do these things and get these things, and in 3 months and 6 months, sometimes even shorter than that, they're telling you you can now be a UX UI designer and make six figures, and like all these things that they know everybody needs to hear in this economy. And I feel like people are jumping into it and trying it and getting discouraged when they do that and they don't get the results that they're supposed to see. I know even a lot of the boot camps that used to kind of promise job placement or promise that you don't have to pay until like you get a job and then they're taking the percentage, like even they're struggling now because they're finding it hard to kind of guarantee that placement, or is that like horrible jobs or like weird companies with like super low salaries. So like that has become like a problematic thing within like the boot camp space that I'm hearing about as well. So definitely be careful about which programs you're signing up with and what they're promising you. And yeah, like the market is crazy right now. Anytime boot camps and courses or a certain part of tech becomes popular, that is going to mean an oversaturation of people at that entry level. And there's not an oversaturation of entry level jobs or like junior jobs or internships. Those are a little bit few and far in between. But I don't want people to give up because I really love this profession. It's like changed my life, especially as a person of color. I have dealt with all the BS in it, but it's getting a little bit better, and I think it can only continue to get better if there are more faces like me, like us in the field. And so I want to see that. So I am here to kind of encourage anybody to keep going. Don't get discouraged because you haven't, made it or got a job in these short, unrealistic time frames that people are trying to give you. Keep pushing, keep pushing. I am going to try to get better at answering questions in my comments and things. But guys, if you need personalized advice, I do offer paid consultations. They have like different levels, different packages. I just like finished building it out. But also I have a free Notion resource for aspiring designers. You can kind of go through, see a lot of my recommendation things, hear a lot of answers to the questions that people are always asking me in DM. So you don't have to ask me again. They're right there if you take the time to jump into it. So feel free to explore those resources. Hopefully I'll be back on YouTube with more real talk, with more in-depth help. I'm not even making no promises this time, but you guys, I started designing my own UX merch just to motivate me to get back on YouTube and make videos that I like. So yeah, maybe that will happen. Just stay on me and I'll be back.